Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 4 in our higher education textbook. One of the things that I want to focus on this particular session is this notion of how the budget cycle should look, what it looks like in terms of hiring faculty, getting projects approved, and I think this is a big concept and a big idea. Real quick, you'll notice it's pretty dark in here, you can't see me that well. We're having some issues kind of with different sort of lighting coming into the room, so I'm trying to make this so it's more readable and easier for you to see. But remember, when you're watching these videos, I strongly advise you to follow along directly with it with the presentation open so that you can take notes directly on it. So this is a cool chapter. It's really going to show you what a fiscal year looks like in higher education. There are similarities because the majority of decisions are estimated over the summer, decided on in the fall, and then delivered on the following summer. So we'll see the very common September 1st through August 31st budget model in higher education. It's what most universities and colleges use. So a lot of you in this class indicated that you are interested in becoming faculty one day. So let's talk about this process and what it looks like in most institutions. I think it's important to address this. I think it's something that you potentially can see and get a good understanding of, because some of you are going to face these decisions as you move forward. I want you to be prepared, and I want you to know what the market is like. Because if you're working in an academic position, you need to know how long and how time-consuming it can be to hire faculty. So I definitely think this is a big idea. So most of the time in the summer, department chairs estimate how many faculty positions are going to be and what they look like institutionally. This could be in terms of, we need 2 clinicals and 1 tenure line, but they really have to determine how they're going to benefit the institution. The requisitions are handled at the institutional level, and you determine whether or not a faculty member is needed. Then in October or November, the posting will go live to a site. And if you're looking right now at the Chronicle or Higher Ed Jobs, you're seeing that a lot of things are posting. This is kind of one of those times right now where you've got to have your eyes open, and they're going to come out even more end of October, early November. In December or January, they start doing screening interviews. Most of the time, these are done by Skype or by telephone, and it gives you the opportunity to learn what the expectations are for the positions, and also get to know what's going on in the department. People are normally brought for campus interviews in February and March, and the hiring decision is made in April. This is common for places that are doing a full year-round cycle to find good faculty members. So most institutions, it is a 1-year process to hire faculty members. What my advisor at Pitt, and that's Dr. Maureen McClure, would always tell me is, if it was a shorter period of time, the fix is in. Meaning that if it posted and it went away in 2 weeks, they knew who they wanted to hire, they had the decision made in the beginning, the fix was in. You can interpret that for what you will and what it looks like in education, but I do think that's important to consider. So, as we said, in higher education, this notion of salaries it's a big thing. Higher education, we're going to be focused a lot on the salaries in the budget planning, because that's going to be one of the biggest things that we take our money in higher education. In K-12, yeah, we have to worry about staff, but we're planning around the students, and we're going to hire staff based on student needs. In higher ed, you don't get the opportunity to do that. Obviously, at the undergraduate level, students mean new faculty members or not. But a lot of the times you're forced paying faculty members lots of money, and that looks like something, and it has to be interpreted appropriately. Higher ed goes through more channels than K-12. K-12 really is site-based management for most budget decisions, with big decisions coming out of central administration. But higher education budgets move slower. There's more channels, and there's more that you need to consider and think about. So when you're looking at institutional characteristics, keep in mind that the more full-time faculty that are tenure-lined, the more complex the budget is. In smaller schools, we can listen to clinical faculty and we can listen to non-tenure lines, because they can have input on the budget and they can say what the budget is supposed to look like. But In your larger institutions, you go with what the full-time faculty say, and there is a chain of command that's kind of followed, where your tenure line faculty and your main people that are in charge of things are the ones that are going to be making the final decisions related to budget and making the suggestions to the department chair. So some institutions do not let non-tenure track faculty participate in the budgets. I worked at one. I worked at two places where I was non-tenure lined before I came to my current position, where I was clinical while I was getting my doctorate. One of them, I had as much stake in the budget as I wanted. Sometimes that was a good thing. Sometimes it was a bad thing. The other one, I had no say. But it depends on what the goals of the institution are. Some institutions won't let students participate in the budget, some do. Our institution where I'm at now, we do let students make decisions related to the budget and also contribute to faculty hires as well. I really want you to think about all possibilities in terms of what administration does in terms of budget participation, how people can be involved in it, and what that involvement looks like. So the timeline is important. In public institutions, it's very important because you are at the mercy of the state legislator. When funding comes through, that's a big idea. Private institutions, there might be more flexibility to do hires quicker and also to make major budgeting decisions quicker as well. So public institutions share at the state what they're doing. In Florida, the state of Florida is truly at the mercy of the state as a whole. Sometimes it takes until January for faculty position to post because you're waiting for state money to come in. Most of the time you can look at what the state did in past years, but we know that in the state there have been good and there's been bad. There's been years that have been money's been given out, happened a few years ago, and then in the mid-2000s that really wasn't the case. 2015 was a landmark year. I don't know if they're going to be as giving of years with more hires in the future, but it was a landmark year. So most of the time, you know what the major expenses are going to be. You know what salaries are supposed to be. You know if there are going to be any major capital projects. When you have special projects and benefits, that can really mess up the budget in higher education because those are things that are really going to change. If you have a cohort model that's being conducted off-site 2 hours from here, that's a special project. It's going to require faculty. It's going to require administration. That can be a challenge. Benefits, you're at the mercy of what the federal government says. They dictate it, it's managed at the state level, but then you're forced to basically go along with those benefit packages. In public institutions, remember, private institutions, there's a lot more flexibility and a lot more autonomy. So, one of the best things that you can do as a leader is make sure that your faculty and staff feel like they are a part of the budgeting process. They do not have to be the do-all and end-all. They don't have to make all decisions. But if you can involve them in some of the bigger decisions, that's a big idea, and it makes them feel like they're part of it. Let them dream. Let them look for things that can potentially make their lives easier. And then try to include them in the planning process as well. And if you can do that, that's excellent. So if you're the department chair or you're the academic program coordinator, you have to review the budgets that come in. The program coordinator is going to make the budget based on what their faculty wants, and they're going to push it to the academic chair. If you have a dean, and in your larger institutions, it's the traditional spider hierarchy. If I had a chalkboard in here, I would draw it out. You have to make sure that you have everything in line before you present to the dean. Do not look like an idiot before the dean, or in a smaller institution, don't look like an idiot before the provost if you are the dean. Try to talk to your faculty, review every proposal that's on the table, and see what those look like so that everything that's presented is fair and realistic. When you can, provide feedback to faculty in front of them. If you can give faculty feedback while you're reviewing the budget, it shows that you care, that you're attentive, and your faculty knows that you are important, that you have a stance on these budget issues. If you don't think there should be a tenure line and you think there should be a clinical line, why not tell your faculty that in your faculty meeting? That's a huge decision. If you don't think there should be a master's cohort done 60 miles from here like there was in the past, the program coordinator and the dean really have to work together on this. If you were open to faculty in the pre-planning meeting, you should be open to telling them your opinions and sharing with them what direction you think the department needs to go in. So the final budget submission will go to the dean or provost. Like I said, it depends on what the level of the institution is. If you've handled the prior meetings appropriately, you can do this without a hassle. But I say this again, private and public in the state of Florida is crazy. There could be last minute legislation that comes in at the state level that gives you more money or takes it away. Private institutions, there actually is more stability. Because a public institution, you are really at the mercy of the legislature. So don't lose sight of that and don't forget that. So the pitfalls to preparing budget documents, I think you can read this list on your own. There's really not much for me to expand upon. Just realize that you have to make sure that you're transparent, you have the correct sums and figures presented, and you take care of any ancillary costs that are built into the budget as well. Make sure that you know what's going to happen with the budget and what the budget represents. So the actual approval of the budget is going to come from the dean or the provost. They're going to get decisions based probably on order of importance from the department, and then it's made at the dean office and worked all the way back down. You can boomerang the budget in K-12 because it always comes back to the building level. In higher education, if it doesn't come back, that's a good thing. But in K-12, it will always come back to the building principal to say this is what it is, final say. Higher education, if you do it correctly, then in theory, they don't need to look at it anymore. So you're hoping it doesn't come back. So one of the things that you have to do is monitor the budget, because people spend more at the beginning of a budget cycle and run out. It's a natural tendency. We all do it in our expenditures, and at the end of the month, we're always struggling. And everybody is. It doesn't matter where you are. One of the things that you have to think about is the notion of travel and travel grants. If we all are to stay in education and we get into teaching in higher ed, AERA is the biggest conference of the year in education. It's the one that all of you should dream of presenting at. Their acceptance rate is below 20%. If you have the opportunity to present there once in your career, it's great. A couple times, you're doing something right. But their season doesn't start until July. You find out in October if you're presenting, and the conference is in March or April. So if you're a smart program coordinator, you're going to wait and you're going to save that travel money for AERA, because you're going to have a lot of faculty members that are going and are attending AERA. So in terms of budget adjustments, these will take place at the end of the first semester normally. Most of the time, faculty move or staff change position, but that happens at the semester break or in the summer. There are 2 times of the year, fall and spring, where transition is going to occur. So budget adjustment is going to happen December, early January. That's when you're going to say, we're ahead, we're behind, this is what we need to do. In higher education, the final month of the fiscal year really is over summer months. The organization says we have more money or we have less money, but I do think it is easier to overextend the budget in higher education than it is in it's easier to overextend a budget in K-12 than higher education. K-12, you always relate it back to the students. In higher education, it goes back to the faculty. In K-12, you're going to spend more money because it benefits kids. In higher education, we have to give the faculty more travel grants. So that could be a problem. If you're relating it back to the students, bigger idea, and it's something that's going to be easier to justify, for sure. So the other thing that you do is you analyze the results and you plan for next year. There's nothing wrong with pre-planning and seeing what the next year is supposed to look like in terms of budgeting. You want to look and see where everything is coming from. In higher education, it's going to come from salaries and benefits, but you have to look at the legislation. In public institutions and in private institutions, you're going to look at possible retirements and previous year spendings. So this is an important chapter. I tried to relate it to our organizational context. Our next chapter will look at auxiliary and capital budgets, which is really specific to higher education. You're not going to see many of these in K-12, so if you're interested in higher education management and staying at the college level, this next chapter is a big idea when we address it. So read it, look at it, and if I can do anything to help, as always, please let me know. Thank you.